Good job.
Oh, okay, I'll take it away, huh, Carol?
Yep, you're on.
Okay, so it is impressive what you've all done with the chapter in the last few years. Carol, I'm really impressed with what you just showed me. Anyway, to get to this talk, I'd like to thank Carol and the North Coast chapter of CNPS for giving me the opportunity to make this presentation to you of several unique areas on the forest known for their serpentine habitats and their rare plants, for which they were designated as botanical areas. And the three areas are the Lasix Botanical and Geological Area, the Horse Mountain Botanical Area, and the North Fork of the Smith Botanical Area. Huh. I'm pushing enter. Why isn't it moving to the next slide? Now let's see here. Oh, I know why. Or do I? So I need to go back to my screen. It seems to me, why can't I, let me minimize this here. I don't know why the,
So are you in slideshow on
I
that
think I'm in Zoom. So what I need.
Zoom is just showing what is on your screen.
Okay. So I need to, could I stop sharing for a minute, Carol? I don't know why it's not. Oh, there it goes. It just worked. Okay. Where I want to be. Oh, shoot. I need to go back. Do
your arrow keys work?
Pardon?
Can you use your arrow keys at all to move between slides?
I'll try that. Oh, I can, huh?
Thank you, Maria.
Yeah, so that apparently is, let me go back to slide 1. So anyway, the focus of the talk will be serpentine treasures at Six Rivers National Forest. And it's not just the rare plants, but also the 3 botanical areas where they reside. For each of these areas, I'll show you where they are, how to get there, and a few photos that I hope will pique your interest in the special places. If anything, you might be disappointed that I don't have more slides of the plants. And Northwestern California and Southwestern Oregon support the most extensive ultramafic terrain in North America. And for this talk, I'll use the term serpentine. And I think there's one point where I mention ultramafic, but in this it's synonymous with serpentine. So let's see. So what characterizes serpentine? What does serpentine look like? And there are 2 basic types. You know, this is at the most basic level. I hope there's no geologist in the group here. One is serpentinite, which is this greenish blue looking rock here. And the other is peridotite, which is this rust colored rock. It's difficult to distinguish serpentine by color alone. We get out in places and we get out of the truck and we look and we debate and get arguments over whether or not we're on serpentine or not. And oftentimes we'll go with the vegetation more than we will with the rocks on the ground. So serpentine soils are characterized by low concentrations of exchangeable calcium and essential nutrients and a high concentration of heavy metals, which has contributed to the development of a unique flora associated with serpentines, as well as many localized and regional ultramafic endemics. And here you can see, I assume you can see my cursor, which I'm using as a pointer. And here you can see the high ratio of magnesium to calcium, where in all other soils, the calcium is higher, and calcium is an essential plant nutrient. And although much work has been done to catalog the plant diversity on serpentine, including taxonomic, morphological, and physiological diversity, relatively little has been done to understand the evolutionary origin of serpentine species. And because of these heavy metals, Horse Mountain and the North Fork of the Smith botanical areas have been impacted by past mining operations pursuing these heavy metals in these areas. And here's a picture of a piece of iron taken from Copper Creek up along on the Six Rivers National Forest in the vicinity of the Union Czar mine, which was a mine that was developed during the Civil War to mine copper for making ammunition for the Union Army. So the mining history goes back quite a few years on Forest. And I showed this to my son, and he went on the internet, and on eBay, he found a rock that looked just like this with a magnet stuck to it, and they were selling it as a meteorite. So my advice to him was to not buy any meteorites on eBay. So let's see here. So this is a photograph of the Alpine pennycress. And the name I've known it by for years is Gillespie montanum, variety montanum, but over the last couple of years, they've changed the technology, or the terminology. Technology has changed too, but they've changed the terminology on so many plants. I might have to retire because I can't keep up with them. But the Alpine pennycress is an example of an adaptation to heavy metal concentrations in serpentine. The species has been the focus of many studies due to its ability to store relatively large amounts of nickel, and it's been found that nickel hyperaccumulated by pennycress is acutely toxic to a particular insect herbivore. And here again, you see the classic gray-green serpentine color. And I'm going to try to stick with common names as much as possible, unless there's not a common name available for these species. Because after a while, these scientific names sound like a bunch of gobbledygook. Although it turns out I think this audience is more astute botanically than I was expecting. So here's a map of the Lassix, and to get to the Lassix, and it's a botanical and a geological area. It's a geological area probably because of the serpentines that occur in the area. So you would go out Highway 36, you'd cross over the Little Van Duzen here in Larrabee Valley. You continue on past the town of Dinsmore. And before you start going over the ridge that drops down to the Mad River, there's a county road. And there's a sign there for County Road 511, and it goes south and it follows the Van Duzen River. So you'll go several miles south, and there's a sign for Forest Service Road 1SO7, and that road, which goes right to the heart of the Lassix botanical area, and you can see half of that botanical area has become Mount Lassix wilderness area, shown with this in this green blob here. You know, on this map, it looks like 1SO7 does not connect to the county road, but all the base maps I've looked at has the county road on the wrong side of the Van Duzen River. I don't know why that is. It's a mistake, but that's how you would get to the Lassix, both the botanical area and the wilderness. And the road up here just skirts the wilderness boundary. This is the county line here. So this is Humboldt County over here. This is Trinity County over here. So here's this is Black Lassic here, seen from 1SO7. And although it might appear to be volcanic in origin, it's primarily composed of sedimentary rock. And in the foreground here, this is indicative of the serpentine barren landscape. And it's surrounded by this Jeffrey pine forest, which is a tree species closely associated with serpentine on Six Rivers National Forest. And here, this is photos. There was a fire up in the Lassix fire in 2017. This is a carpet of wildflowers coming up 2 years later. And the Lassix fire had killed extensive stands of Jeffrey pine and white fir, which you see in the background here. Now we'll get into the photo couple photos here of some of the plants that occur there. This is Fritillaria glauca, no common name that I'm aware of. It's a CMPS list 4 plant. This is Mount Lassick here, which is also known as Signal Peak. And you can see some of these trees here were burnt in the Lassick's fire. Here's another very showy fritillaria, the scarlet fritillaria. It's not listed by CMPS. It's not considered that rare. And right after the fire, I saw it coming up in places I'd never seen it before. But I think what happened is I think the fire burnt up the shrubs in which it was growing and exposing more of them. But it's a beautiful plant. And this is Allium Fosifolium. It's interesting. I don't know if this is happening on your computers, but the name is being obscured by this menu thing up above. Anyway, so this is Allium Fosifolium. It's not listed by by CMPS. There's also a white flowered form of it that it's not a different variety or anything. It's just a form. And again, note the color of the serpentine rocks and also the rocky terrain that serpentine is known for. This is Allium Campanulatum. It's also not listed by CMPS, and it's another showy onion species that's growing in the rocky barren on Mount Lassick. Take a water. Next is, now this is the very rare Lassick sandwort. It's a CMPS list 1B species. It's only known from the Lassicks. And it's a Forest Service sensitive species. And the Forest Service sensitive species are those that are so rare that there is a concern for their persistence. And we manage them to avoid impacts from projects proposed by the Forest Service. You know, it's the common name is listed in the Natural Resources Conservation District's plants database. Actually, this is wrong. It's the Natural Resource Conservation Services plants database. The common name is listed as Lassicus stitchwort, and for some reason they've misspelled Lassick and they've called it Lassicus. So I sent them an email, but they're busy folks, I guess. And here's the crown of the jewel of the Lassick's botanical area. It's the Lassick's lupin. It's CMPS list 1B. It's a very rare plant. It only occurs there. It's probably the rarest. It is the rarest plant on our forest, and it's currently being reviewed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for federal listing. In the Forest Service, the Fish and Wildlife Service, Humboldt State, and the North Coast chapter of the California Native Plant Society. Specifically, Sidney Carruthers and David Emper, along with Lisa Hoover, the previous forest botanist, have collaborated over the years to prevent this very rare species being extirpated. And its persistence remains in question. And just before Lisa retired, she developed a conservation strategy to help manage the species. So now we're going to leave the Lassicks and head north to Horse Mountain Botanical Area. Probably the one most of us are familiar with because it's closer to town than any of the other botanical areas. So you probably already know this, but you go out State Highway 199, and after you get to Berry Summit on the other side, there's the Titlow Hill Road, a county road that climbs, switchbacks and climbs up to the top of Titlow Hill, where Forest Service Route 1 begins. And there's several roads that lead into this botanical area. Here's some historic photos, probably from, I'm guessing these are from like the 30s. And this is the mining operation that was up on Horse Mountain for a number of years back then. And this ore processing facility, the concrete foundations still there for these structures. And also remaining are toxic tailings tainted with arsenic. that are still there to this day. There was a proposal to remove them at one point. The funding was never acquired, and it would have caused a tremendous amount of disturbance to the botanical area. So I think that it's better for those toxic tailings to remain where they are, probably. And then once again, here's Allium Fosifolium, which occurs on all the botanical areas, and it looks a little stressed out because of all this garbage that occurs here in this area where target shooting is popular. And just 3 weeks ago, we had a meeting with the district ranger, and I think you've heard this, Carol, that we're going to work on a closure area to close target shooting in this area. Finally, after your persistence, Carol, that's finally going to happen. So, and then another rare species, this is CNPS list 4. This also occurs in all the serpentine botanical areas, and it's the pale yellow stone crop, which is spectacular around Signal Peak. I think it blooms more there than anywhere else, and it has a flower color that varies from pale yellow to a pale green. And this is Viola Halii. It's not on the CNPS list, but it's something I don't see very much at all on forest. I've seen it at Horse Mountain, and I've seen it up the Lassix, but that's about it. To me, it appears rare, but maybe somewhere off our forest it's more abundant. And then here's the recently described Erythritis Trinity Encys, which is a very small annual plant. It's on the Forest Service sensitive list. It's a list 1B. It's the only annual plant on our sensitive species list, I think. And because it's so small, it's easy to overlook. We've had several plant treasure hunts, 2 of them now, I think, Carol, up to Horse Mountain and south of there to look for this plant. In fact, while we were up looking for it, somebody was target shooting down below us. We asked him to stop, but he said he'd be careful. And Lisa Hoover insists while we were up above him, she heard a bullet whiz by her head, which is one of the reasons they need to close this area to target shooting. So now we've moved to the North Fork of the Smith Botanical Area. And this one is, goes right up to the Oregon border. So it's going to get to this point here in the botanical area is going to take you easily 3 hours if you're coming from Eureka, a little less if you're coming from Arcata. And to get there, there's 3 ways here to get there. One is to go up 101 to Rowdy Creek, which is just south of the town of Smith River, and take Rowdy Creek Road up to Weimer Road. And when we want to get here, we go this way because it's the fastest route because you spend all this time on Highway 101. But if you're botanizing, I would think the best way would be to go from 101 and go up 199. And just before you get to the town of Gasky, before you cross, there's a bridge that crosses the Smith River. Just before that, you would take the Gasky Mountain Road 17 and 49 up to the Weimer Road. And this would be the best one to botanize along. But as I mentioned earlier, Carol, if you start botanizing here, it's going to be dark by the time you make it to here because there's so much to see between here and here. And the other way, is to go out 199 and take 197, which I think is called the North Bank Road. It follows the Smith River. And you could take, and that's actually where this county road starts. You could take that all the way up. So that's how you get to this place. And I recommend that you have excellent tires because it's gravel all the way. And it's not absolutely necessary, but it would be great to have 4-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, although it's not necessary. So I got to catch up to where I am on my cheat sheet here. So the North Fork of the Smith is located on what's called the Josephine Ophiolite. And an ophiolite is just a chunk of seafloor that's been shoved up above sea level onto the North American plate. And you can see that in this diagram, this cartoon here. You see the spreading ocean ridge is sending the oceanic crust this way. At the same time, the North American plate is moving west. And so this oceanic crust is subducted or pressed below the North American plate. And the crust that's on top of it is scraped onto the North American plate. And that's what an ophiolite is. It's this layer of soil or material that's scraped onto the North American plate. And it's high in magnesium and low in, and high in heavy metals. And it's basically serpentine. And this our areas is tectonically associated with active ocean spreading at the Gorda Ridge in this subsequent subduction. And the Josephine ultramafic is an extensive area of serpentine occurring as a continuum across northwestern California and southwestern Oregon. And it's the largest serpentine terrain in North America. So some of the distinctive elements of the Josephine Ophiolite is one, Port Orford cedar is present, and so is Port Orford cedar root disease. So if you go up there, if you drive through creeks or wet roads, we ask that when you get back, you wash your undercarriage or your vehicle. And if you walk through some water, it's a good idea even to disinfect. We have a boot disinfectant kit that has, it has aerosol spray that and a brush and a rag to clean off our boots. You can use alcohol too. But you mentioned going to Pine Flat Mountain, Carol. Pine Flat Mountain, interestingly enough, there's no Port Orford cedar on Pine Flat Mountain, which has always surprised me. So another element of the Josephine ultramafic is a high stream diversity and abundant seeps with Darlingtonia. There are plateau-like features with Jeffrey pine and Idaho fescue. And there are these rare endemics that plants are only found on serpentine. And here's our only federally listed plant on the Six Rivers. It's McDonald's rock crest. It's a CNPS list 1B plant. It's currently under review. Its listing is currently under review by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And it will be interesting to see if it stays federally listed. There was an earlier treatment a couple years ago that dealt with the pink flowered Arabis of the North Coastal Range. And in it, the author assigned this to a different species. They said it was different than the type locality for this is down in Mendocino County. And she said it's different, gave it a different name. If that holds up when she finalizes her treatment, then this will be something, it will no longer be McDonald's rock crest, it will no longer be federally listed. Also up there is another rock crest, the Waldo rock crest, which for years was not considered to be in California, even though we would find it. This was taken within a quarter mile of the Oregon border. And the closer you get to the Oregon border, the more you see this this vestiture, these hairs on the leaves, which are and on the peduncle, which are diagnostic for the Waldo rock crest. And I don't know if I mentioned, this is also a CNPS list 1B plant. And here's the Western bog violet, CNPS list 1B. It's forest sensitive, Forest Service sensitive. And we've been collecting census data on this, and they've also been doing it up on the Rogue River in Oregon where it occurs. And the numbers that are recorded are very large. In fact, they're too large. And it's because we have been counting these shoots. This might be one plant. We might call this one plant. But this plant's extremely rhizominous. And what you see here is one plant. And I think in some cases, you might have 50 or 100 plants that are rising from a rhizominous mat that really represents one plant. So the numbers don't really indicate how rare it actually is. And then here's the Mendocino gentian, and like the Western bog violet, it's found in these serpentine wetland areas. And this is also List 1B, Forest Service sensitive. And this species, included along with the Western bog violet, is in a conservation strategy that covers Six Rivers National Forest, the Rogue Siskiyou National Forest, and BLM. And it was a conservation strategy that all the entities that are included in the range of these species have agreed to manage for their protection. Here's another very showy flower that occurs up on the North Fork of the Smith, and it's the Siskiyou mountain willow herb. And I inserted this slide up in the upper left-hand corner, and this is, get this right, this is the Siskiyou, this is, I'm gonna use scientific name. This is Epilobium siskiyouense, which is a List 1B. It's very rare. This is Epilobium rigidum, which is a CMPS List 4 plant, which is certainly not as rare. In fact, about, I don't know, 5 or 10 years ago, a couple of botanists came back in the office and they said, "Hey, John, you won't believe this. We found an extremely rare species that hasn't been recorded on forest up by Ship Mountain." And right away, I knew it was the Epilobium rigidum because I'd seen it up there. And you know, it's not always easy to use those keys in the Jepson herbarium. But this one here has glandular foliage, which you could kind of make out here. And this one, the foliage is not glandular, it's glabrous. But it's a beautiful plant anyway. So lastly, I'll go over the carnivorous serpentine wetland plants on Six Rivers National Forest. There are 3 of them that you'll find up in the North Fork of the Smith Botanical Area. One is the round leaf sundew, which uses these sticky glands to trap insects. You can see some insects trapped in these things. And my son is a catcher for Arcata High Baseball, and these things look like catcher's mitts to me. And this is a very pretty plant, the horned butterwort, which occurs on seeps up in fact, all of these are in serpentine wetland areas. In seeps, this has, none of these have, well, the last 2 have no CMPS listing. This uses sticky leaves to trap insects. This plant looks like it's starving to death. And then lastly, of course, is Darlingtonia, which we all know and love, and it uses this modified leaf to lure insects into its deadly trap, where they end up in being dissolved in the juices at the bottom of this plant. And this is, I believe this is CMPS List 4. So that's it, that's the end. So if you have any questions, I wanted to time this. I don't know how long this took. Probably took 15 minutes. So anyway, are there any questions? No, stop sharing so I could see. Or any comments. Some of you have been in this area and know it well and might have something to add.
So you can ask questions on your chat, or if you want to just speak it, go ahead and just speak it.
There are 2 chat. Well, I hope this was interesting and rewarding for you all. I actually don't do many presentations, so.
Well, we're lucky, John. Those are good pictures and interesting plants and good places. I've got a few questions.
Okay. And we have like 270 photos in our photo library for Six Rivers. That's why I'm going to have our intern get a hold of Larry and see if we can get a lot of those on iNaturalist.
Great. I thought I'd tell you that if you want to see a great show of Hall's Violet, the one that you said you just seen a couple places, well, at Cold Spring there's one of those kind of gravelly, meadowy places on the way down to the real meadow
Mhm.
is Solid Halls violet, and they're probably all blooming right now.
Oh, wow.
Because a couple of weeks ago, the first ones were blooming.
You know, I know you all spent a lot of time up there, Carol, and there's a historic record for the mountain lady slipper up there at Cold Springs. So that's one thing. Every time I go there, I look for that.
Yeah,
So if,
Yeah,
if
we've got
anybody
that.
ever found it, that would be most cool.
I think we'd spot it if we were near it, because
Okay,
we're always looking for the mycoheterotrophs too, that there's so many of there. We always,
right.
at the right time of year, we always see the phantom orchids and coral roots and pine sap. There's a good assortment in the forest there.
Well, I hope I can answer your questions, Carol. I'm getting a little nervous.
No, well, yeah, that wasn't a question. It was a statement, huh? Oh,
Right.
can you tell me more about your boot disinfection kit? That sounds like something we should take with us on our field trip.
Yeah, and what we just have a tackle box, and it has, you spray Lysol, you just spray your boots, and it has like a putty knife for scraping any mud off your boots. And there's some paper towels for washing things off. And that's about it. So, and if you're just walking on dry ground, it really doesn't matter much. But up there, you know, you're going to see, you're because of all the seeps there, it's likely that you will walk through some. And on our Six Rivers external website, our www.website, there's a map showing where the infection is, but the map is very outdated. The data on that map is well over 10 years old, so there could be more infections. And you might even see some dead Port Orford cedar trees. You inevitably will, trees that have all their vegetation has turned brown. So that would be another thing to key in on.
Okay, so if we go for a walk, say around the cabin where we're going to be staying,
Mhm.
and then later that day we're going to go up to someplace else. I guess you said there's no Port Orford cedar at Pine Flat Mountain, but
Correct.
then we should clean our boots between those two places.
You know, between Pine Flat Mountain and Major Moores, it's pretty dry. I don't think you're going to go through any seeps. You might go, yeah, you'll probably go, I would imagine you go swimming in the North Fork of the Smith right there at Major Moores. There's no need to disinfect your entire body, of course, but there are some seeps around there. If you go to the North Fork campground on the other side of the creek, there are some seeps in that campground there. So, you know, you just need to be on the lookout for wet conditions and any mud that might stick onto your boots.
Okay. I guess our cars will be fine because we're just the cars will stay on the dry road.
Right, right. Although again, you might, you know, when are you going up there, do you think, Carol?
It's the weekend after next. So so today's the 1st plus 14. So it's the weekend of the 15th.
Okay, so you might drive through some seeps because there's still some wet conditions on some of those roads there. So, you know, you're not going to disinfect your tires, but just when you get an opportunity, you get back to town, just be sure to wash off your undercarriages.
Okay. So I see Carl's got a question.
Okay, Carl, what's up?
Yeah, John, so you said that some of those plants were under treatment as being prepared to be listed.
Right, right.
Can you just give a short description of how a plant is chosen to be going through the process as being listed?
Sure. So what happens is there's a petition to list the species. And, you know, the cynic in me thinks that the listing of a species, the federal listing of a species is not only a biological decision, it's also a political decision, as you could well imagine. So I think there's a petition that's issued, and there's like a 90-day period during which that petition is reviewed. And from there, it goes, if it's decided to move forward, and this has happened with the Lasix lupin, it goes to a team at the Fish and Wildlife Service who prepare additional listing material, and then that's presented to the their Department of Interior. So ultimately, it goes to probably some underling in the Department of Interior, probably a committee, and they make a decision if it should in fact be listed. And then the listing is, I don't know if it's signed by the department head. There's probably somebody in the lower echelons of the Department of Interior who has the authority to agree that it should be listed. And then it goes into the Federal Register, the proposal to list, and that's sent out for comment to the public. And if the stars align, it becomes federally listed. In fact, Carl, I have a flow chart. I'm going off, what I remember this flow chart I saw like a month ago, but that's close, if not perfect.
Who makes the initial decision to start that process?
Well, in this case, I believe it was Dave Emper who did the initial. Dave Emper did the initial petition to get it state listed. So it was just last year it was state listed. And I wouldn't be surprised if he had a hand in working with Jenny Hutchison at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to move this forward to get it federally listed. But I have been told that probably by the end of the year, the decision will be made whether to federally list it or not. And you could imagine getting a plant federally listed is not a slam dunk. Look how hard it was to get the Humboldt martin listed, a cute fuzzy animal. So it's definitely an uphill battle, but certainly Sydney and Dave Emper have done we've been collecting census data on the Lasix lupin since I think 2006. Every year we cage the plants every spring when the snow comes off and take the cages off before the snow comes back. And a lot of effort has been made to protect this plant. Up at Humboldt State, Dan Barton, who's now the head of the wildlife department, they've been putting out trail cameras and trying to get information on the small mammals that are preying on the seed, which is another thing that is affecting the Lasix lupin. The other thing, the Lasix lupin is at 5,000 feet. And David Emper has done a correlation between when the snow comes off and how well the population fares. And right now there's very little snow up at the Lasix, and we're just getting into May. The late May, even early June snowfall, if it lingers, is important for maintaining those moist conditions for those seeds to germinate and add to the population. In fact, so we have records that show in the past, or Dave Emper does, that they had snow up until June at the Lasix. I don't think for the last, I don't know how long we haven't had snow in June up at the Lasix. It's come off in late April, May. Last year, what really helped was getting those late storms coming through. So right now, the weather does not look good. The weather's a big concern for that species. And climate change, climate change is not doing that species any favor. So.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Oh. Any other questions out there? Yes. Do you have any ideas, John, about well, is it true what I've observed, every place I see those, like the Mendocino gentian and that Western bog violet, it's always on serpentine.
Yeah, Yeah.
Is it, would we say those are serpentine endemics? Are they always on serpentine?
definitely, definitely. I've never seen that, the gentian is called the Mendocino gentian. I've never been to the site where it is on Mendocino County, which is a type locality, but I assume it must be serpentine. So,
Carol, there's several questions in chat.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, yeah. What would be a good time to go to the Lassix and see the Lassix pea? Would that be the two-flowered pea? Adjoining Forest Service land is private land where the two-flower pea occurs, which is also a very rare plant. It only occurs in that one site. And I would say the best time to see that would be in June. And there's a conservation easement on that private property, Carol. You probably know about on the two-flower pea up there. I don't know, do you ever go on field trips up there to look at that? I've been there.
No, the road is so horrible. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to have really sturdy four-wheel drive vehicles to do that. Yeah, and it's a long drive and it's private property, and yeah, it's not a good place for a regular field trip. We've had CMPSers join the land trust to do the yearly monitoring up there. But I think Wanda's probably asking about the Lassix lupin. When's a good time?
I'm actually trying to say Lassix lupin and type and listen at the same time. Which didn't work.
Okay.
So anyhow, when is a good time to go see the Lassix lupin?
You had a field trip up to see the Lassix lupin, what, last year or the year before, Carol, was it?
Well, it wasn't last year.
It's been the year before.
Maybe it was the year before, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we do our what we call demographic monitoring of counting plants along transects. We do that the first week in July. It's when the plant is probably at its peak bloom.
Thank you.
Yeah. So there's also a question here. When would you go to see lady slippers and the coral plant that Carol was talking about? Well, the mountain lady slipper is, and the biggest concentration on our forest of the mountain lady slipper is in the headwaters of the Mad River up around the Three Forks area. And unfortunately, this area was hammered by the August complex just last year. And I guess the fire made a big run and nuked a very large area in that whole Three Forks area. And one of our goals is to go there this summer and see if any of it, look at the fire intensity, how it affected the habitat, and then over time, see if we could tie that fire intensity to the presence of the mountain lady slipper. It comes from an underground corm, so I'm hoping that even though it looks terrible, it's completely black out there, there's no duff layer left, I'm hoping that some of those mountain lady slippers will come back. And Chelsea, I should let you answer. Chelsea is an orchid expert, and you actually visited those sites year before last, huh, Chelsea? I went to a couple with you, so we know it was there 2 years ago, but we don't know if it's going to be there this year.
Yeah, when we went to see it, it was past bloom 2 years ago. But actually, we did a little field trip yesterday, and I think we're at 3,500 feet, and they're coming up, but not in flower yet.
Is this where the fire was, Chelsea?
No, this was up off of Highway 1, past Horse Mountain Botanical Area.
Oh, okay, okay. And the coral root orchid, that is probably also, peaks probably in June, would you say, Carol? Depending on the elevation you're at.
Yeah, like at Cold Spring there, you can see a lot of those, the coral roots and the other things in July even. Yeah, June's kind of early
Yeah, okay,
just-
so it's July.
in a normal year, whatever that means. But
Yeah, really, these days. And then Ken Berg, who used to be president of the North Coast chapter years ago, but well before I was, he says the authority to list or not resides with the director of the Fish and Wildlife Service in Washington, D.C. The scientific analysis and recommendation comes from the local U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service field office in Arcata. So that's a better answer than what I provided.
sounds like he's done it.
Yeah, I would imagine he has. You could chime in, Ken, if you like. And that looks like it's the end of what's in the chat area. So, well, thank you all for sitting through this.
Well,
Hope you enjoyed it.
It was a pleasure, John. Yeah, very interesting and good directions about how to get to places. And I'm sure everybody's ready to go. They just
Yeah, get some dinner.
need the time.
Right.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to do other things than go off botanizing for the day.
Yeah, like eat.
Yeah. So anybody have questions about anything else to do with the wildflower show or tomorrow we're planning to sort of cover the highlights of the show. The architects of the main parts of it, like Larry for the collection and Susan Penn for the plant walks and Annie for the art, are going to show just kind of summary high points of their parts of it. And we might come up with something else, like if the invasive plants get separated out on the collection, maybe we'll have a tour of the invasive plants or something like that. And we can always entertain questions. So thank you, John.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
Or-
Thanks for having me.
Interesting. And thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank
And I
you,
hope-
John. That was really great.
Oh, thank you. Okay.